Shannon, three, two, one, boom.
Woo!
We're
How's it
here.
going?
Good. How are you?
I'm really, really good.
You stoked? You
Uh,
just watching programs before the
I was just
podcast?
watching some Ted Lasso and you know,
That's a good
some
one.
other good stuff that I read those
hmm
books and now they're shows.
You know what show I watched last night? We watched Love on the Spectrum on
Oh, I've seen
Netflix.
that on Netflix.
Have you seen? Yeah.
No, I mean, I've not seen it. I've seen
Oh, you haven't seen the show? Okay.
How was it?
Amazing. I mean,
Hmm.
I do love the love shows. I'm not gonna lie. I'll peep a Bachelor, I did, and we'll see what happens with, the name of the Bachelorette coming up is Charity for this next season. So maybe we're gonna have to have some Bachelorette,
Parties.
cutaways.
I
Yeah,
love that you already know her name.
I do. I
That's
think
my
it's,
mom is addicted to Bachelor and Bachelorette.
I mean, her name is Charity. I mean, if I don't know that name, so that's gonna stick. We'll see how she does. She did get her heart broken by Zach, not that I know. And now she'll be able to find love on her
Perfect.
terms. Yeah.
That sounds great. Well, on that note,
Yeah. Yeah. On that note,
that's
our
the perfect lead in to
perfect
what
lead
we're
in.
going to be talking about today.
Yeah. So I'm so excited. Man, Shannon, this was crazy. So out of the blue, this gentleman called me. I met him years ago. His name is Gabriel. He goes by Gifted and Blessed. He's a producer, composer, DJ based out of SoCal. And he called, was looking for a referral when I was out in LA and we, sent him to USC. Anyways, he calls out of the blue last week and he's asking about getting a follow-up appointment with another doctor because he's having some issues and we'll get into it. And specifically, we talked a lot about weaning off of his medication and how he's looking to maybe stop taking medication. And we talked a lot about the environment from which to speak, to your doctor about that and kind of, being your own advocate.
Sure,
So
sure.
that's stoked. I'll read a couple things from his bio. So he spent the last 20 years releasing productions for other artists, as well as his own music through many record labels, including Stone's Throw Records and his label, Techno Indigenous Studies. He's released a wide variety of genres under various monikers, including GB, Frankie Reyes, and The Reflector, and The Abstract Eye. And he's also a founding member of the band The Steeples, Steeples. I mean, he's in the green room right now. Did I get that right, man? He
You
can.
got it
Okay.
right.
All right. So he's also been on his journey of coping with a seizure disorder since late 2016, and it wasn't until 2021 that he finally got his seizures under control. He hasn't spoken publicly about his seizure disorder often, so the majority of his fan base is not familiar with his struggles and keeping his nervous system in balance. Through his struggles, his musical output has only increased and helped him process what he has dealt with over the years. That's awesome, right? I love it. So this guy, he's found some control. He's making more music, and I'm stoked. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here he is. What's
Hello,
up?
everybody.
What's up,
What's
All
going
GB?
on, folks?
right.
How you
That's quite
doing?
an intro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining
Thank
us,
you for
man.
having me. Oh, I'm so happy to be here to talk to the both of you. Been enjoying the few episodes that I've watched of your podcast already. So yeah, glad to join.
Yeah.
Great.
And
Thanks.
this
Well,
is the
we're excited. We're excited for today.
this is
Great.
this is the first time I've ever seen you. We've spent hours on the phone over
Oh,
Yeah.
the
really?
years. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
And
Yep.
yeah, we had he called. Let's just start there, man. You want to tell everybody why you called? I mean, I told, kind of in your intro how were looking for an adult epileptologist years ago. Can you give us just kind of like a high level update?
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So Basically, yeah, I contacted you, as you said, those years ago to try and find somebody who could, help me out appropriately, deal with my seizure disorder. I was first, before contacting you, I was suspicious that I was dealing with seizures. I am never conscious of my seizures when I have them, so I wasn't sure. But situations were happening where I would find myself, laid out on the floor, with blood around me and things like that, or like friends would find me passed out and or see me, have these staring spells and so forth. And so, when I finally did, well, during that time period, I was trying to see other doctors and get a grip over what's going on with me. And the doctors were saying things to me like, actually, I had this one doctor in particular, the first one that I saw. She said, you know what, you're dealing with, sounds like a somatization disorder. In other words, you're making up the symptoms. That's what she told me. And so
What?
that was the most help I got from her, which is pretty insane. Obviously dealing with epilepsy, it could potentially be fatal if it's not, dealt with accordingly, right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh my
so
gosh. What the?
yeah, so that was really kind of scary for me. Finally,
Wait, hold on.
someone
I feel
did
like
get me.
hold on. Wait. I feel like let's just break that down for a second. What? How did you
Sure,
react when?
yeah.
Yeah, come on.
With
So
anger, I
she,
was very angry,
yeah.
I've
So
but I
she,
never
couldn't.
heard that ever in all of my years that somebody was told, "Sorry, you're making this up," or whatever. I've
yeah.
never heard that
What were
before.
her What were her words? You're making this up. You're full of shit. What did she say? What?
That's essentially what she said. She said, "It sounds like you're just the symptoms are just kind of like made up. You're just making them up, and it doesn't really sound like you're dealing with anything physical. It's a somatization disorder." Those were her words. And so she just then told me, "Just bye." You know,
Mm.
that
Oh
was
my
it.
gosh. Who is that?
That
That's
sounds like a lawsuit, right? I mean,
Yeah, no,
that's
it's
really
not
dangerous.
normal.
It's malpractice. Yeah, yeah. But,
Well,
100%. That's what, who is this person?
but
Let's get it out there right
mhm.
now. So,
Well,
all
mm,
right.
at any rate, at any rate,
Keep
it was
going. Okay, we
okay.
yeah.
Okay. So at that point is when, well, finally someone did witness me have a seizure and called, 911, and I was taken to an emergency room where they witnessed me have several seizures in the emergency room as well. And so they finally said, oh, okay, yeah, you're dealing with epilepsy. They put me on a medication right away. Keppra was the medication that they put me on. So that's when it was official that I was dealing with seizures. Or it was no doubt at that point in my mind that that's what
Mm,
I was dealing with. This was back in at the end of 2016, and a lot of stress in my life at that time. So it just happened at a time where I was very high stress time in my life, right? So from there, I did try and find another doctor who's capable of a neurologist who's capable of treating me. And none of the neurologists were very helpful at all. I from the beginning was having terrible side effects from the Keppra that I was taking. In particular, it really affected my mood. I was having mood swings and like lashing out at people and things like that. That was the feedback I was getting from people. I wasn't even really that aware of the fact that that's how I was coming off, but that was the feedback I was getting from a lot of people. And then I did notice a high level of anger and within me. They call that Kepler rage, right?
mm,
So I found a doctor who, I told him, hey, I don't want to take Keppra anymore. Um, what are my options as far as other medication I can try? Because the Keppra never worked. It didn't stop my seizures. I was having them with the same regularity. So the other doctor put me on Tegretol. Same thing. Didn't slow down my seizures at all. Kept having seizures with the same, regularity. And I just felt totally lost in that process. Like, who can be helpful to me, So, fortunately, I was connected to Nate, and I basically, reached out like saying, hey, who can help me, you know? And so he was kind enough to put me in touch with an epileptologist who was a little bit more helpful for sure, but even so, my seizures were not letting up at all. And it wasn't until um, 2021 that finally I had the last seizure that I've had, at least that I'm aware of. But in the process, the reason for doing that, or rather, I don't know if it's, I can't necessarily say that the medication is why I'm not having seizures anymore. Perhaps it is, and so I'm grateful for that. However, the medication obviously does come with side effects, and the medication that they put me on was Onfi in addition to the Tegretol that I was already taking. So I'm still on both medications at the moment, and every time I've brought it up to a doctor, even from day one when I first found out that I had epilepsy, or rather a seizure disorder, because I don't know if it's quite epilepsy or not. I really don't know the difference because I'm no doctor. But what I can say is that from the beginning, I've been looking to try more natural approach to dealing with my seizures, because I know several people who have dealt with seizures who have, minimized their seizure activity through natural means, diet in particular, and other things, magnesium, other supplements. So I was looking for, an epileptologist, or at least a neurologist who was willing to help me to, wean off of my medications to try and, do this the natural way, try and deal with my seizures the natural way, because really the medications are just dealing with the symptoms. They're not really
Yeah.
dealing with the underlying disorder. So, and then they come again with their side effects that you need another medication to handle, and then those medications come with side effects that you need another medication to handle, and so forth. That's just how big pharma is. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I reached back out to Nate, as he said, last week, because I'm in the process of trying to find a neurologist, preferably an epileptologist, but at least a neurologist who's willing to help me go about this in the way that I would feel most comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
hold on. I think there's a big thing you said earlier. You just flagged to me. You said the
Mm.
medications, you don't know if they actually stopped your seizures,
Hey,
but
I heard
rad,
that, Nathan.
right? You hear that? Yeah.
Yep.
So here we
Mhm.
go. What do you
Mhm.
think?
Mhm.
Was that like how you were feeling mentally as a DJ? Was there a lot of stress involved? I mean, because now you're
You
weaning
know,
off
it,
this medication, right? So what else can you identify that maybe was a cause of this that's no longer happening?
well, I definitely dealt with a huge amount of stress at one time during when the seizures first started. I lost both parents within recent years, suddenly within 3 years of each other, and was dealing with that. Was dealing with relationship issues with past partners. A partner I was with for a really long time, and then very shortly after, another partner that I got with, and they were very, very stressful relationships. You could just leave it at that. I don't want to get too deep into that aspect of it, but we'll
I
say that.
I mean, we can if you want, We did open the
Yeah.
show with The Bachelor.
You did say that. You're right. But no, I'd say that really the highest stressors for me at that time were, again, not fully not fully grieving the loss of my parents, not fully grieving the loss of that first long relationship that I mentioned, before jumping straight into another relationship with an individual who had, her own difficulties and problems that I had to be there for as well. And it was just a lot at once. So it really wasn't the music that was the stressor for me. The music's always been kind of like, my safe haven in many ways,
Mm,
So it really not my, as I said, I've been doing music professionally for so long. It's a natural flow for me as far as getting things done, touring and all those kinds of things. It's not that's not super duper stressful for me, but yeah, as I said, those you know my relationship with my parents, my relationship with female partners, etc. Those were the primary stressors, and then when I lost contact with the second partner, that's when the seizure stopped. But it coincides with when I started my second medication. So
okay.
I
Who
don't
knows?
know. I'm just putting that out
Yeah.
there. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I
Bottom
think,
line
you
is,
know what, you mentioned something I thought it was really cool. Like, across the board, no matter really what it is, um,
mhm,
any kind of disease or disorder, when you throw stress in the mix, it's gonna
yeah,
really like just take whatever it is and climb it up that mountain because
Hmm.
and
yeah,
just we take on stressors of other people, if our parents are stressed,
oh
we get
yeah,
stressed. Our kids are stressed, we get stressed. My daughter was
mhm,
got a ticket for going 90 and a 60 this past week. She's 16. And I was like,
mm,
I couldn't sleep all night. It's that kind of a thing. I didn't have a seizure, but we just take it on and we do it. And then when it's your own stress, it's even that much more. So I think
yeah,
it I mean,
yeah,
it makes
yeah,
sense and it's tough. And something else you said, and I love this because Nathan and I have been talking about this for weeks, is the medicine is treating the symptoms, and the symptoms
mhm,
are, or but it's not really treating the underlying cause of
right,
what's going on in my brain, right?
mhm,
So
mhm.
the symptoms, the seizures are a result of all of that, and I think that that's really, important to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this is exactly the mindset that's gotten me to this place now where I'm, really seeking to, wean myself off of the medications that I'm on. Not I'm on, as I said, two medications at once, and I'm not looking to, do it super duper fast because I know I should say this as well. When I was dealing with Keppra and all of the horrible side effects that it had. I tried to wean myself off on my own without much research, and I went into status epilepticus where I was having seizure after seizure after
Oh.
seizure after seizure.
Mm.
You know what happened? They took me. Some friends of mine happened to be with me, and fortunately, they were there for me. They took me to an emergency room, and in the emergency room, they said, "No, it just looks like he's on drugs."
Yeah. Oh,
That's
Mm.
what they told
yep.
me. That's what they said
Yep.
about me. They didn't even bother treating the fact that I, was
Mm.
dealing with epilepsy and that I had weaned myself off the medication too quickly. They just said, no, he just looks like he's like drunk or on drugs or something. And then they made me leave. And then I kept having seizure after seizure after seizure after seizure. And
They
yeah,
didn't do anything for you. They didn't stop the. That's so messed
Wow.
no,
up. Wow.
no,
Wow. That's
I'm
so
sorry to
common
hear
yeah,
too,
that.
the
Jeez,
whole,
I'm.
oh,
Oh.
they're on drugs, they're a druggie or this or that. Because seizures are kind of a side effect of doing drugs, so that's an automatic thought.
Yeah, you can have
But
seizure. Yeah.
that it's not okay, So you might
right,
think that, but y
Mm.
you have to
yeah,
do something. That's awful. It's happened to Nathan
yeah,
before, so
Yeah. Well, what are some
yeah.
like if you're I gotta ask like your friends, do you I know you said and we learned from your bio, you're not really that
Hmm.
public with it, but do you take a proactive position to tell your friends about your seizures and whatnot? Tell us about that a
Oh
little.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so all the people close to me, they're
Mm.
aware that I deal with seizures, and they all know at this point what to do to be helpful and what not to do. And I'd say the primary thing that I've kind of encouraged them not to do is don't call 911. Don't try
Yeah.
and take me to the emergency room because they're not going to be helpful. But these are the things that you can do to help the seizure be as mild as possible, or rather, prevent me from hurting myself and that kind of thing. You can sit me down, you can, or lay me down, make sure that, I'm as calm as possible, stay there with me through the whole thing. Because I'm not having grand mal seizures or anything like that. My seizures are the kind where I just kind of stare off into space.
Mm.
And a lot of times people they don't even know that I'm having a seizure. So but those who know me or who are close to me, they do know that I deal with those types of seizures, and so they know that anytime they see me, they witness me having a seizure of that sort, then they pretty much know what to do to kind of get me in a a comfortable resting position where I can just let it pass in as stress free environment as possible. um, so that's been, and I've as you mentioned, Nathan, I haven't really talked a whole lot about the fact that I deal with seizures, publicly. Definitely not to my fan base. I actually did put up one video once where I was kind of explaining what I've been going through over the last few years, and I got a lot of beautiful positive feedback from people. I have since taken the video down. I just I for whatever reason I took the video down since, but it was a while back. And you know, I also did put out a record that was called Epileptics, and that
Oh,
was speaking to my condition and also kind of not only my condition but the condition of many people that deal with seizures. So that kind of affirmed for my audience and the people that listen to my music that okay, he deals with epilepsy. And that was
Mhm.
that was kind of the only little tidbit that I've put out there about it. I don't talk a whole lot about it, but
Yeah.
you know, again,
You did.
it's really. Oh, please, you guys.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, you actually you shared a picture. I'd like to show it real quick. Of you said you there was a show you had a seizure on stage, and
Mm,
you sent
hmm
two pictures. Here's one. Was it the other picture you sent? Was this
Yeah,
it?
that was a more recent picture, and I wasn't having a seizure. Fortunately, I've only had one seizure experience during a
Was
live
it
performance. It
that?
was not. Yes, it was that night.
Okay,
oh,
tell
So
us.
that's
that
cool.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, that was
Tell us.
in that was a pretty interesting situation. I was in Las Vegas. So I was touring with another artist named Flying Lotus at the time, and I I hadn't even spoken to them about my seizure condition actually at all.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know that I was dealing with seizures. But when I showed up, uh, they weren't. This is the interesting thing. When I showed up to the sound check, they the guys at the door. I was like, yeah, hey, I'm here. I'm playing on the same bill as Flying Lotus tonight. We don't believe you. The guy got weird about it, and then I got really angry, like super duper angry and stressed out, and I had a seizure.
Oh,
And
so
then
that.
Oh.
that was the first of several seizures I had that night. So I had a seizure. They sent me to the ER. When I came to, I was in the ER, and I said, I must have had a seizure. This is not the place for me to be. Got myself an Uber back to the venue. Said, hey folks, yes, I deal with epilepsy. Yes, I've taken my medication. Um, the medication does not help, just so you know. It doesn't lessen the seizure activity for me. So, but yes, I that was the seizure that you witnessed. You know, stress is really the big thing for me when it comes to pushing me into having a seizure. So I don't believe that I'll be having more seizures because, well, at that time, this is the conversation to the staff that was in charge. I said, I don't believe that I'll be having more seizures because usually I'll just have one at a time, and then everything will be okay for that day. But then I was having several seizures. I had another one, and then they sent me back to the emergency room. And then I'm like, why am I here again in the emergency room? And then so I did the same thing, Ubered back to the venue, said, hey, folks, do not call 911. If you
Geez.
see me have a seizure, this is what you should do, okay? Just
Hmm.
sit me down, make sure I'm calm, make sure that you just allow it to pass, and just make sure that I'm safe. And that's all that can be done. And so they were at that point clear as to how to handle it. Once they'd finally let me in and let me, set up and all that, because they believed that finally did believe that I was on the same bill that night. And and
Jesus.
so then knowing that I was dealing with that, they're like, hey, you totally don't have to play tonight. You really don't have to. I said, look, I'm pretty certain I'm not going to have another seizure. So, and I've committed to this gig, and I really would love to share my music tonight if you'll still allow me to. And so they said, okay, cool. So they let me, and they said, okay, well, if we witness you having a seizure on stage, then we'll just, we'll slowly escort you off the stage, and that'll be that. So at the end of my set, which was about an hour long, is when I had a seizure,
Oh my
and
gosh.
they fortunately it didn't interrupt the music. The music was going as normal, but fortunately someone spotted it, and then she came and ushered me off stage. But it just looked like I just went into, like, just like zombie mode, and then they walked me off the stage, and that was the end of my set. And so the audience didn't really necessarily, probably most of the audience didn't know that I had a seizure.
Okay.
But I did read one comment. Someone said, "Hey, what happened to Gifted and Blessed at the end of that his set? Like, it looked like he just kind of like went into like zombie mode, and then they like walked him off of the stage, like he was like like a
Uh,
zombie or something." And so that's how that one turned out. And as I said, I haven't had another seizure on stage, fortunately. And so fingers crossed.
wow.
Hopefully, I won't have another.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I can't get past the fact you had 2 seizures, 2 trips to the hospital,
Before.
2
Yeah.
Ubers back, and you still made it to your set on time. Like, for me, I'm like, "Wait, what? What's
Yeah,
going on?"
yeah, yeah. And I mean, and then that other seizure that, or at least one other seizure that I had, upon returning, is just like
Yeah,
it was a lot, it was a
that's
lot,
a
Jeez.
yeah,
but hey, it worked out.
Well, it sounds like
Is my
stress is a huge trigger for you.
100%.
Like,
most certainly, most certainly. Quick question: is my lighting okay, or shall I turn on an overhead light?
you look beautiful.
You're great. You're perfect.
Is the
You're
Great.
delivery
perfect.
there
Okay.
yet? Is the package there? Is the plug here yet?
Uh, not as far as I know. Not as far as I know. Yeah, so I haven't gotten any knocks on the door, or if I have, I haven't heard them because I have on noise
No.
canceling headphones. So, but it'll be fine. We'll figure it
Well, I think
out.
we should celebrate a little. I mean, you haven't had a seizure in a while, right? I mean, how
Yeah,
many
it's
how many
it's
years
been
has
two
it been
years.
again?
It's
2 years?
been
Yeah,
two.
that's something to
Yeah.
celebrate. So tell us about, like, are you back on the road? Are you going back on tour? Let's talk a little bit about that. Did you got some
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So I've since done a number of shows, and I continue to play live. I will be likely touring, towards the later part of this year to promote an album that I will be having come out with, like you mentioned, Stone Store Records. That's a label that I work very closely with. So I will have an album coming out with them, later in the year. So I'll be touring to promote that.
Nice.
Um, hmm So I anticipate being on the road for that. I'm excited about that.
Nice.
And fingers crossed. Let's hope I don't have any seizures.
Yeah, just don't get stressed, man. I tell you what, that sounds
Yeah,
like,
that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
it is.
That's a whole do you have a way to kind of control stressors in your life
Yeah,
now
if
that
another
you know
security
that
guard, yeah, sorry,
they're a
Shannon.
hmm
trigger, you know? What do you do for
hmm
yourself? How do you handle that?
Well, okay. Let's say I'm in a situation. If Nathan, you said if another security guard gives me some
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
issues or
Yeah,
whatever,
let's role play. I'll be the security
you
guard.
know,
Ready? Yep.
yeah, yeah, okay. So, so in that situation, what I do, I take a few moments to kind of step back from just emotionally not be invested in the situation, but step back and focus on my breathing. Focusing on my
Mm,
breathing is very helpful to me. And I guess there's that Butenko breathing technique that's very helpful to a lot of people that deal with seizures. So that's something I practice. I meditate often. regularly, and I also practice yoga. Um, there are other things that I do as well to de-stress. Those are the primary ones. I'd say breathing and kind of getting back into my body and zooming out,
Hmm.
not zooming into the stress of the situation, but rather, reeling it in and say, hey, okay, is this worth the possible consequences of you getting stressed? No, never is.
Yeah.
So there's always another way to deal with a situation other than to be overwhelmed and stressed by it.
Always, always. I love that zooming out so you don't zone out. I mean, that's kind
Yeah,
of
that's right.
really what it is.
That's
So,
right.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
I like that. That's
Yeah,
great.
I haven't heard that one
Yeah.
yet. I am a big advocate for the breathing technique though. That's helped me a lot.
Huge.
Mhm.
Huge.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right.
Another thing that I've noticed as well is certain foods tend to trigger or yeah, I'd say if I'm eating a certain way, then a lot of times I'm having more seizures, this is speaking, from when I was having seizures
Yeah.
anyway. But if I was eating a certain way, then seizure would be a little bit more frequent for me. And usually for me, it's like high sugar or junk food, processed food, that kind of stuff. Just I don't do very well with. Um, and so I'm at a point right now where at the very least I've cut out any processed food from my diet, and I've
Mm.
really minimized the amount of sugar and carbs that I take in. I'm not quite in the ketogenic, I'm not quite in ketosis yet. That is an aim of mine though, is that I'm looking to, just really stick to the ketogenic diet. Now, the reason why I'm not there yet is because I have a few things left in the refrigerator that I need to kind of just finish off, and then once I'm done with those, then I'll go full on keto. But I don't want to waste food, so that's that. But yeah, I definitely try to eat as naturally as possible, and that's been my lifestyle for quite a while actually. Before the seizures, I've always been very much into a more naturopathic lifestyle,
Hmm.
and that's why these medications. That's another big part of why these medications. Just even on a mental and emotional level, really don't feel so great for me to be putting into my body, because every time I do it, I'm like, hey man, you're putting these chemicals in your body that are totally unnatural. And again, if they're helping, beautiful. But I'm pretty sure that there are other things that can help because I've seen it with other
Hmm.
people. You know.
Yeah, like what do you
Well, like what
what
you're saying, diet
yeah.
too. Diet's huge for, and so many people are on
Yeah.
those diets for a reason. They're just hard to
Mhm.
stick to, is what I hear. So,
Now when you
Yeah.
talk natural, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just gonna say, one thing that I wanted to say is during that really high stress the time in my life before I started having the seizures, right before I started having the seizures, I noticed that I was eating a ton of high sugar junk food. I started eating, and this was like kind of my way of coping with what was going on in my life at that time, rather than kind of like facing it head on. I was just eating like a pint of ice cream a day,
Oh
that kind
wow.
of stuff. Yeah, and so I'm very much aware of the gut brain connection, and there's totally a connection that I think gets ignored a lot. And so for me, it's been okay, let's restore the gut. Let's see what happens, there on top of doing my other practices to minimize my stress and so forth.
Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
more about that gut brain connection. I mean, I've heard
Hmm.
inklings here and there. I can't speak too much to it though, but can you expound upon
Hmm.
that a little more?
Well, I'm no doctor, but what I will
Right.
say is that I do know that I'm pretty certain that the vagus nerve
Hmm.
it runs from the gut to the brain, and it may even, I'm not exactly sure of the path that it takes in the body, but I'm certain
It's in
that
there
I'm certain
somewhere.
that the
Somewhere,
it's in there
yeah.
somewhere, and so that's why a lot of what they do for other alternative methods of treating seizures. Uh, I've seen vagus nerve stimulation, for example, is
Yeah,
one thing
Saber
that
has
that
that.
is a common thing, right? And so, and that's why part of why the vagus nerve needs re-stimulation is because it's either out of balance, or perhaps
Sure.
another thing that's come to my attention recently has been uh, like being out of alignment. Like a chiropractor can tell you, hey, your vagus nerve is kind of being pinched off over here, and that could also be a cause of seizures for some people as well. So it's not just that; it's also that the gut lining. If the gut lining is not healthy, then your body can absorb a ton of nasty stuff that you don't want it to take in.
Hmm.
And that could perhaps play a role in it too. Again, I'm no doctor, so I really can't speak too much about it. It's just that I've just heard lots of reference to the
Yeah,
gut brain connection.
yeah.
Yeah. I've heard that
Mhm.
there's so many books about it too. I mean, you hear about
Mhm. Mhm.
proper gut health, and I've heard about it
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Never done anything about it on my end, but heard about
Shannon's
it.
like a pint of
Yeah.
ice cream a day. That's nothing. Get out of here.
Uh, I don't do I'm more with you. I try to do keto. Like, I'm not actually in
Mhm.
ketosis, but I try to
Okay.
uh, really limit all the, you know, flour and sugar and all of that, any of
Mhm.
that white stuff really kind of
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
just get rid of. I don't do it. So, I try. I
Yeah,
Yeah.
try not to do it
yeah. Sugar's
Mhm.
bad.
Mhm.
until I take a medicine. Nathan takes it too.
Mhm.
Depakote, and
Yep.
Hmm.
Depakote makes you crave carbs. It's a you gain weight on
Yeah.
Depakote, and one time I asked my doctor, who's down in Newport Beach, I said, "What's the deal with that? Like, is there just something
Mhm.
in the medicine?" He goes, "No, it actually makes you crave carbs." I said, "Oh, well, fuck that." Like,
Mhm.
great, one
Mhm.
more thing I need. I'm like
Mhm.
a middle-aged woman, and now I need to have a pill that makes me crave carbs. That's like, really? What the heck? So,
Yeah.
my saving grace is that my husband's 300 pounds, so he's a football player, he's 6'7", 300 pounds, so no matter how much weight I gain, he's always gonna be 150 pounds or,
Wha-
twice my size, which,
There you
I have
go.
to say,
A
I kinda
wifey
like
hack right there.
I'm not
Wifey
gonna
hack.
lie, I like it.
There you go. There you
Anyway,
Dude, it was
go.
so great having you on. You said you watched a couple other episodes. What's something you took
Yeah.
away or what episode that kind of did you like that maybe you resonated with? I'd be interested to know.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna totally mess up the name. I don't remember her name, but she was a golfer. I believe her last name was
oh,
McConnell.
Yeah,
yeah,
Kinsey O'Connell, I
Kenzie.
Um,
think. Yep.
that's right. Yes, I really liked the episode with her. That was the first one that I watched in full, and I've caught a little bit of some of the other episodes as well, but I haven't watched them in their entirety. But I definitely liked that one. There was the one with the football player whose sister
Oh,
struggled
Brett,
with
yeah.
epilepsy. Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes. I enjoyed that one as well. Um, yeah, so I got to definitely do some more digging in your past podcast and check more of those episodes out. But yeah, that watching that was it was reassuring in a way because it kind of made me feel like, okay, you know what, I'm not the only one dealing with this. Well, also, you two, the fact that you deal with what you deal with, that's reassuring to me that you're even doing this podcast. Like, that definitely makes me feel better about what I've been going through, to know that I'm not alone in
Hmm.
this situation, right? So,
Yeah.
that was my big takeaway, was like, you know what, other people are dealing with this, and it can be more severe in other people, in the cases of other people.
Yeah.
And I'm just grateful that it's not that way for me, but a seizure is a seizure, and it's a sign of the nervous system being out of balance in one way or another. And as I said, it's just reassuring and comforting to know that other folks are dealing with it as well.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think, and
Well,
I
that's
think
sweet.
too, that was great. And I think just for us, every time we interview somebody, we learn something new, or
Oh,
it's
totally.
like you were talking about Kenzie, and her seizures where she would look at, like the table would go the wrong way and that'd throw her
Yeah.
into, a seizure. And then she, her and her husband just would sit at the bar because they didn't want to have a table that was moving. I thought I'd never
Right.
heard that
Mm.
ever anywhere before,
Right.
ever. And I just thought that was
Right.
kind of
Right.
fascinating, right? And so, and then,
Yeah.
Brett's got a sister. He's not the one with epilepsy. So, it's everybody's
Yeah.
story is a little different. So we appreciate you sharing yours also. And my
Yeah.
favorite
Well, thank
question
you.
to ask is what, what would you, what do you tell everybody else that has epilepsy? Like, what's your, anybody that's watching this, kind of like what you said, I was
Mhm.
watching this and it was reassuring to me. What would you say to the people that are watching this episode and listening and hearing you? What's your bit
I would
of
say primarily I'd say, you know, number one, find a competent doctor who is going to support you in the process that or the route that you want to take. Who obviously there's going to be some, listening to your doctor because the doctor knows better than you do about what you're dealing with, in many ways. However, in addition to having that support from a competent doctor, make sure the doctor is willing to work with you and allow you to advocate for yourself. Many doctors that I've seen, I'll ask them, so hey, so it's been, like the one I'm seeing now, for example. Hey, it's been 2 years since I've had a seizure, so can we talk about maybe a long-term plan for when I can begin to wean off? And the first neurologist actually tells me, well, when I say first, I just recently got changed over to a new neurologist who's like way worse than the one that I've been working with for the past couple of years. But he's an epileptologist, so he's he knows best, right? So the neurologist that I was working with, I asked her, so when can we start talking about, a long-term plan for me to wean off these medications, And her response was something along the lines of, well, most people who have seizures like you just stay on the medications forever. And I said, okay, but also I've done enough research to know that, with if you're seizure free for a couple of years, then you can definitely uh, go through a process of weaning or tapering, and to wean off the medication over a period of time, and she's just like, okay, well, maybe one of your medications at a time, but we'd have to make sure it happens at a time where you're not, you don't have a lot going on and this and that. And that's understandable. But she said, but what? Instead of that, how about I just, I have a really good friend who's an epileptologist, and he and I work together so closely. How about the three of us come up with a plan? I said, okay, great. She said, okay, cool. So let's schedule an appointment with him. So I did that. Saw him a couple weeks ago. She was not there. She had just passed me over to him and cut me off. So now he's my new neurologist, and he in the conversation, I kept trying to bring up points, bring and ask questions, and he'd say, yeah, 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 wait, and he would just cut me off, cut me off, cut me off. For example, good example, you know, I'm like, so he's like, do you smoke? Do you drink? No, I don't drink. Do you smoke? No, I don't smoke cigarettes. As far as marijuana goes, definitely CBD is something that I have found to be helpful to me at times. And so, and he's like, and so, that's, I do ingest, marijuana from time to time, and then he's like, why CBD? That's how he like snapped at me. I said, because to help, you know. And
Yeah.
so and then he would just, everything I said, he's like, and I'm like, so, I brought up the same thing. So I'm really interested in taking a natural approach here, and perhaps getting off of my medications over a long, an extended period of time. So, what can we do here? And he says, you know what, just keep taking your medications and live your life. That's what he
What?
said. And so, and that's not a very supportive, approach to being
You do
a
you,
neurologist
boo.
or an
You do
epileptologist.
you.
You,
Yeah.
so, yeah, so it's like, he's like, just keep taking your medication. I was like, well, I'm concerned about the effects that it might have on my liver. I'm concerned about the effects it might have on my bones.
Sure.
I'm concerned about, all kinds of things. None of these were side effects that were brought up to me when I was put on these medications. But in my research, like on WebMD, for example, the basic website, they'll tell you all the side
Mm.
effects of these medications. And so I brought all of them up to him, and he said, you know what, just it won't be so bad. Like the damage it does won't be so bad. Just live your life. Just take the meds and live your life. And so I just kind of I played his game. I played along for the duration of our talk. But I of course, it left a bad taste in my mouth. So I would say, to answer your question, as far as, what someone can do who's dealing with seizures, I would say find a supportive doctor who's willing to listen to you and listen to what your wants are, what your needs are, and on top of that, minimize the stressors in your life. Minimize anything that you can identify as a trigger and try to have as few of those in your life as possible. Again, for me, stress is the primary trigger, but not only stress, high intensity emotions, negative emotions in particular. Like if I'm super duper happy, I'm not gonna have a seizure. But if I'm like really angry, I've had experiences like that. Like when the guy wouldn't let me into, hey, I'm opening up tonight. No, you're not. We don't have any word that you're opening up. And I just went off on him, and I was really angry, and that's when I had a seizure. So it was the stress, but again, the anger and stress go hand in hand. So identifying again just your primary triggers, what seem to be the things that are that you can identify most often in the picture when you're having seizures. Try to reduce those as much as possible. That's
Definitely.
that's what
Clip it. Clip it. I
Yeah.
love it.
That's
yeah,
great. Great
yeah.
advice. I
Oh
love it.
Hmm.
man. Well, thank you so much, man. This was such a treat, and I'm so glad we got to connect all these years later. I mean,
Oh, my pleasure. I'm super
keep
duper
us up
happy
to
to
keep
speak
us
with the
up to
both of you.
date. Yeah. No, this
Oh,
is
I will.
awesome.
I certainly will.
Uh,
Yeah, 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 definitely, definitely. And for anybody watching, definitely, feel free to look into the music that I'm making as well. As you mentioned, Gifted and Blessed is the name that I use most often, but
Ah.
oh man. Mic drop.
Damn. What
Mic
just happened?
drop. Mic drop. Okay.
Hey, we
Oh
got in the
man.
words gifted and blessed.
Gifted and
That's his
blessed.
state, what is
Gifted
he
and
on
blessed.
Instagram? Gifted and blessed.
Mic drop.
Oh, there he
Gifted and
is.
there he is.
Woo!
Gifted and
there you go.
blessed.
Yeah, don't know what happened there, guys, but thank you for picking up where I left off. But yes, yeah, Gifted and Blessed. Yeah, on Instagram, Gifted. It's actually Gifted and Blessed on Instagram. Twitter, Gifted Blessed, because there's not enough characters to fill it in. But
Awesome.
yeah, um, but yeah, Gifted and Blessed. Just look up Gifted and Blessed. And that's those that really sums up honestly how I feel as well. I feel very blessed to be in this position that I'm in, having gone through the difficulties of having seizures. It's not a fun thing. We all know that. But it has certainly made me stronger. And it's certainly made me a lot more aware and a lot more conscious of the amount of stress that I allow into my life.
Sure.
So there's a bright side to it. So I totally feel blessed in that regard. So
Beautiful.
and there's a gift to it in that regard as well.
Well, I love that. Well, we'll
I
definitely we'll
love
share.
it.
Send us a track. We're gonna post it with your episode too on our website, Hazy Not Crazy. All right.
Okay, excellent. We'll do.
Yeah.
I
All
love
right,
it. Woo!
Gabriel.
I can't wait.
Well, you
All
have a
right.
All right,
beautiful
folks.
night. All right. And thanks for joining us,
You
man.
do the same.
We
Oh,
really
my
appreciate
pleasure.
Thank
Thank you
you
for the
so
invitation.
much. Thanks. This was
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you.
Take care, folks.
All
Bye.
right,
Bye.
brother. Talk soon. See ya.
Okay. See ya.
Oh man, that was cool.
That was fun.
Yeah,
Wow.
I really loved his takeaway there about being your own advocate when you're in that room with the doctor. That's so important.
I feel like, every time we ask that question, it's about the same answer, right? Be
There's,
your own advocate, get a great doctor. Be your own advocate, get a great doctor. And
but they
yet,
all have, yeah, they all have like just unique, but the stories in which they get to that advice is just so different.
oh,
It's
right.
crazy.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not. Well, and the thing is about that advice, it's like it sounds so easy, but it's not. You know,
No.
especially when you're diagnosed as an adult,
Yep.
it's like I wasn't. So I learned, I grew up and I was taught by my family how to be my own advocate and
Mhm.
how to find good doctors. But when you're not taught that, it's hard. It's hard. It's a hard thing to do,
Um,
you know.
well, Shannon, what another awesome episode. I'm gonna
Yeah,
clip this.
perfect. It was great. And now I'm going to go back to the couch and watch a couple more episodes of the show that I was watching, before I was I know.
Yeah, I get
Uh,
it. All right, we'll clip that. But that's all, folks.
all right,
Um,
awesome.